Emma stood in her dimly lit living room, staring at the broken lamp in her hands, feeling a mix of frustration and unease. The soft glow from the streetlights outside barely penetrated the shadows, and the quiet hum of the city seemed distant, as if everything had slowed down just for her. She had tried to fix the lamp herself, twisting wires and checking connections, but the stubborn mechanism refused to cooperate. Each failed attempt made her more aware of the silence around her, the loneliness that sometimes crept in despite her small, cozy apartment. It was a feeling she couldn't quite shake, a strange emptiness she tried to ignore, but tonight, it pressed closer, sharper. She thought about calling someone, but who? She hadn't wanted to bother anyone, yet she knew exactly who could help: Mark, her neighbor across the hall. He was always kind, practical, calm in ways she sometimes envied, and there was something in his presence that made the world feel lighter. Her fingers hovered over her phone as she hesitated, heart thumping for reasons she barely understood. Every time she spoke to Mark, even in casual conversation, there had been a warmth in his voice that lingered in her mind long after the call ended. She took a deep breath, dialed his number, and waited, trying to make her voice sound normal, casual, like this was just another everyday favor. When he answered, she was struck by how easy it was to hear his concern, how his tone carried a gentle reassurance that made the apartment feel less cold, less empty. "Hey, Emma," he said, and it was such a simple greeting, yet it sent a small rush through her chest. She explained about the lamp, fumbling slightly over her words, trying to act composed while feeling an unexpected flutter of nerves. Mark didn't hesitate. "Of course, I can come over in 20 minutes, he said, and just like that, the tension in her shoulders eased slightly, replaced by a quiet anticipation she hadn't expected. She hung up and leaned back against the wall, listening to the faint ticking of the clock, the soft sounds of the city outside, and felt a strange mixture of excitement and anxiety. She knew Mark would fix the lamp, she knew it was a small, ordinary favor, yet her mind wandered to other possibilities, to unspoken feelings she had brushed aside for months. She tried to push the thoughts away, telling herself it was just a lamp, just a neighborly favor, yet a small smile tugged at her lips as she imagined him arriving, toolbox in hand, calm and confident, the way he always seemed to know exactly what to do. The minutes crawled by, and every sound, the creak of the floorboards, the distant honk of a car, the soft rustle of leaves outside, felt magnified, like the world itself was waiting with her. She tried to focus on practical matters, thinking about where he might put his tools, how she would make space for him to work, how she would thank him politely, but her thoughts kept drifting, landing on the sound of his voice, the warmth of his smile, the way he always had a way of making her feel noticed without trying. Finally, there was a soft knock at the door, precise and familiar, and her heart jumped. She opened it to find him standing there, as calm and collected as ever, yet there was a softness in his eyes that made her stomach twist pleasantly. He greeted her with a smile, casual but genuine, and the dim light of the hallway seemed to highlight every subtle expression on his face. As he stepped inside, she felt an odd, sudden warmth, a sense that this ordinary evening might turn into something she hadn't anticipated. He set his toolbox down, and without a word, knelt beside the lamp, his hands skilled and careful, adjusting wires with ease. She watched him, captivated by the way he moved, how he concentrated, how he spoke in soft murmurs to himself while working. Each word, each glance, seemed to resonate deeper than it should, stirring emotions she had long kept under control. Emma felt a strange longing, a quiet thrill at being in this private moment with him, just the two of them in the softly lit room. She wanted to say something, to make conversation, but words failed her. She was acutely aware of every detail, the way his shirt creased as he leaned, the faint scent of his cologne, the gentle rise and fall of his shoulders as he worked. The lamp, once a frustrating obstacle, became almost symbolic, a small excuse for this encounter, a bridge between their ordinary lives and something more profound, something tender and unspoken. Emma tried to focus on practicality, thinking about the lamp's wiring and sockets, but her attention kept slipping back to him, to the quiet comfort he exuded, to the subtle energy that seemed to draw her in despite herself. When he straightened, wiping his hands on a cloth, their eyes met, and in that brief moment, the room felt charged, as if everything unspoken between them suddenly hovered in the air. She cleared her throat, trying to sound casual, but her voice trembled slightly. He noticed, of course, and gave a small, reassuring smile that made her chest tighten. She realized, with a mixture of surprise and delight, that she had been waiting for this moment without even knowing it, that the simple act of calling him for help had opened a door she hadn't dared imagine. The city outside continued in its usual rhythm, unaware of the subtle shift in the quiet apartment, the small, significant turning point in two lives intertwined by proximity, friendship, and an unspoken attraction that neither had acknowledged until now. The lamp, now repaired, seemed almost insignificant in comparison to the unanticipated emotions swirling between them, and Emma felt a thrill of anticipation, a whisper of hope, and the gentle, undeniable pull of something new beginning. The evening stretched on with soft conversation, shared smiles, and lingering glances, every moment deepening a quiet connection, a tender understanding that what had started as a request for help might become far more meaningful than either of them expected. By the time he left, toolbox packed, lamp fixed, the room felt warmer, fuller, charged with the promise of possibilities. Emma closed the door behind him, leaning against it for a moment, her heart racing and mind buzzing, realizing that life had a way of surprising her when she least expected it, and sometimes, even something as small as a broken lamp could lead to a night she would remember forever. Mark had just finished adjusting the last wire on the lamp when he straightened and glanced at Emma, and for the first time that evening, he allowed himself a moment to look at her without pretense, without thinking about what was right or expected, just noticing her, the way her hair fell gently around her shoulders, the soft curve of her smile, the quiet vulnerability in her eyes that made his chest tighten and heart skip a beat. He had been holding back for months, careful not to let his feelings show, afraid of crossing a line, afraid of making things awkward between them, but tonight, standing there in her small living room with the lamp fixed and the soft hum of the city drifting in through the slightly open window, he felt something shift inside him, a need to speak the truth he had kept buried, a need to tell her that she had always been more than just a neighbor, more than a friendly face in the hallway, more than someone he casually exchanged greetings with, because every conversation, every laugh, every fleeting glance had slowly built something inside him he could no longer ignore. He took a deep breath, trying to steady the sudden surge of emotions, knowing that once he spoke, nothing could be unsaid, and yet he felt compelled, drawn to honesty in a way that scared him and exhilarated him all at once, so he looked directly into her eyes, and with a quiet, trembling voice, he asked, "Emma, can I tell you something?" Emma felt her heart catch in her throat, a flutter she could barely control, a mix of surprise and anticipation that made her grip the edge of the table beside her for support, because even in the way he asked, in that simple, gentle question, there was an intimacy she hadn't expected, a sudden vulnerability that mirrored her own feelings, and she nodded slowly, barely whispering, "Of course." The room seemed to shrink, the dim light casting long shadows around them, but all Emma could focus on was him, the sound of his voice, the weight of the moment, the pulse of something unspoken hovering between them, and Mark swallowed hard before continuing, choosing his words carefully but unable to mask the emotion behind them. "I've always admired you, more than just as a neighbor. I didn't want to make things awkward, but I can't keep it to myself anymore." The words hung in the air, delicate yet heavy, and Emma felt a rush of heat, a whirlwind of emotions she couldn't name, surprise, excitement, a deep ache she hadn't realized existed, and a longing that made her chest tighten. She had always liked Mark, had always enjoyed his company, the ease of talking to him, the way he listened and understood, but hearing him say this aloud, looking at her with open honesty, was entirely different, entirely overwhelming, and yet entirely thrilling. She struggled to find words, to match the depth of what he had just revealed, and after a moment, she whispered, almost to herself, I didn't know," her voice shaky but sincere, carrying the weight of her own unspoken feelings that had been quietly building over time, feelings she hadn't admitted even to herself, feelings that now surged forward with a clarity she couldn't ignore. Mark's expression softened, relief mixing with hope, and he stepped a fraction closer, the air between them charged with tension and anticipation, a delicate energy that made it hard to breathe normally, a closeness that was electrifying yet comforting, a moment suspended in time as they both realized the magnitude of this confession. I didn't want to push you, he said, voice low and steady now. I just needed you to know how I feel. I couldn't keep it hidden any longer. Emma's mind raced, her heart hammering, and she felt tears prick the corners of her eyes, not from sadness but from the intensity of recognition, the overwhelming awareness that this connection they shared, which had always been subtle, had now become undeniable, tangible, and filled with possibility. She stepped closer, almost instinctively, closing a few inches of space, her eyes never leaving his, and she said softly, Mark, maybe we should see where this goes? There was a pause, a brief silence that stretched and felt infinite, and then Mark smiled, a small, genuine smile that seemed to light up the dim room more than the repaired lamp ever could, and he nodded, his hand brushing accidentally against hers as if to test the reality of the moment, sending sparks of warmth through both of them, a subtle but undeniable connection that made everything else fade away, the walls, the furniture, the lamp, the distant city sounds, all insignificant compared to this fragile, precious instant of honesty and intimacy. They stood there, breathing in sync, aware of each other in a way they never had been before, feeling the weight of months of unspoken longing, the quiet pain of restraint, the sudden thrill of possibility, and yet everything felt natural, inevitable even, as if this moment had been quietly waiting for them all along, waiting for courage, waiting for truth, waiting for the simple act of a broken lamp to bring them to a place where hearts could be spoken aloud. Emma's hands trembled slightly as she reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face, and Mark's eyes softened, watching her with tender intensity, a mix of admiration, longing, and a gentle vulnerability that made her pulse quicken. She laughed softly, a nervous but joyous sound, and he mirrored it, and in that shared laughter, the tension eased, leaving only warmth, connection, and the undeniable spark of something new and fragile, yet deeply profound. They spoke quietly then, words flowing in a gentle rhythm, sharing thoughts they hadn't dared before, teasing each other lightly, admitting hopes and fears, dreams and regrets, and every word strengthened the bond forming between them, a bond that was no longer hidden, no longer restrained, no longer just neighborly, but something tender, intimate, and real. Time seemed irrelevant, the room shrinking to just the two of them, the world outside fading into background noise as they navigated the first tentative steps into something neither had expected but both felt drawn to, a delicate dance of vulnerability and desire, curiosity and caution, joy and trepidation, all wrapped in the quiet glow of a fixed lamp that had started it all. Emma realized, in the hush of that moment, that life had a strange way of surprising her, of creating opportunities in the most ordinary of situations, and Mark's confession was not just words, it was a key opening a door to a new chapter, a chance for connection she had longed for without knowing it, a chance to see where this unexpected, tender emotion could lead. And as they stood there, side by side, hearts racing, eyes locked, she felt a profound awareness that nothing would ever be quite the same, that the simple act of honesty had shifted something fundamental, that they were stepping into something powerful, something emotional, something beautifully uncertain, and yet it was exactly what they both needed, exactly what they had been waiting for without realizing it, a beginning born from courage, a spark ignited in a quiet apartment, a feeling that would linger long after the lamp was fixed and the evening faded into night. After Mark's confession, the air in Emma's living room seemed charged, alive with something neither of them could name yet both felt deeply. She had never expected to hear him speak so openly, to reveal feelings that mirrored her own hidden desires, and now that the truth was out, a thrilling tension wrapped around them, making every glance, every small movement feel electric. She stepped closer, heart pounding, noticing the subtle changes in his expression, the soft curve of his smile, the warmth in his eyes, the way his hands rested casually but with a tension that betrayed his nervousness, and she realized just how long she had been drawn to him without admitting it, how much she had imagined these quiet, stolen moments, how much she had hoped for a connection beyond casual neighborly courtesy. Mark, sensing her attention, felt a mix of relief and exhilaration, knowing that his honesty had not driven her away, that instead it had opened a door he had feared might remain forever closed, and with every word and gesture, a delicate intimacy began to form, like a fragile flame flickering to life in the quiet evening. They talked softly, voices low, filled with both laughter and serious emotion, sharing thoughts they had never voiced before, revealing pieces of themselves that had been hidden even from closest friends, and in those moments, Emma discovered sides of Mark she had admired silently but never truly appreciated, the gentleness in his humor, the depth in his listening, the subtle confidence that made her feel safe yet alive. She felt a strange mix of longing and fear, excitement and caution, as if stepping into something beautiful but unknown, something that could change everything she had thought about her ordinary, structured life, and yet she could not pull back, could not deny the pull between them, the magnetic force that seemed to make the space between them smaller with every heartbeat. They lingered near the lamp, the repaired device now irrelevant, a symbol of the ordinary act that had somehow led to this extraordinary connection, and Emma noticed the way Mark's gaze held hers longer than necessary, a silent question, an invitation, a hope she could feel even before words formed, and she responded in kind, letting her eyes convey the curiosity, the intrigue, and the affection she had tucked away for months. Conversation flowed naturally, a rhythm neither had forced but both followed instinctively, moving seamlessly from light-hearted banter to deeper reflections on life, love, and dreams, and in those exchanges, an unspoken understanding emerged, a bond forged in honesty, vulnerability, and the gentle thrill of discovering someone who truly saw you, someone who made you feel simultaneously exposed and cherished. Every glance, every small movement, the way Mark brushed his hand lightly against his tool as if casually, the subtle tilt of his head, the way his lips curved when he smiled, became magnified, laden with meaning, and Emma felt herself drawn into a quiet, potent dance of emotions that was at once exhilarating and comforting, thrilling yet tender. The room felt smaller, warmer, charged with intimacy that did not require physical contact to be undeniable. It was in the pause between words, the shared laughter, the way they leaned just a fraction closer when discussing hopes or fears, the soft sighs, the moments of eye contact that lingered too long to be accidental. Emma's heart raced as she realized that she had always longed for this, not just companionship, but recognition, acknowledgement, the understanding that someone could feel for her the way she felt for him, that attraction could be combined with respect, admiration, and deep emotional resonance, and now that it was happening, she was overwhelmed by the intensity of it, the beauty of discovering that feelings could be mutual and real. Mark noticed the shift in her demeanor, the slight flush on her cheeks, the sparkle in her eyes, the nervous but excited tremor in her hands, and it emboldened him, made him want to protect this moment, nurture it, let it grow naturally without forcing or rushing, and yet he couldn't hide his own excitement, the thrill of finally having the courage to reveal the truth, the joy of discovering that it was welcomed, reciprocated, and perhaps even returned with greater intensity than he had dared hope. Time seemed suspended. Outside, the city continued its constant motion, but inside the apartment, only the soft glow of the repaired lamp, the quiet hum of life beyond the windows, and the intimate connection forming between two hearts mattered, and every word, every smile, every subtle gesture seemed amplified, creating a memory neither would forget. Emma found herself laughing more freely, speaking more openly, revealing dreams she had held close for years, and Mark responded in kind, his own stories flowing, revealing layers she had never known, the depth of his character, the sensitivity beneath the calm exterior, the patience, the kindness, and the gentle passion for life that made her feel alive just being near him. Their conversation drifted seamlessly between the mundane and the profound, touching on hopes, regrets, past experiences, favorite books, music, and dreams for the future, and in each exchange, a delicate tension grew, a mix of curiosity, attraction, and the thrill of emotional intimacy that neither had anticipated, but both embraced eagerly, savoring the feeling of being truly seen. Emma noticed the subtle gestures, the way Mark adjusted his posture when she laughed, the way his voice softened when he noticed her expression change, the careful attentiveness that made her feel valued and heard, and she realized that attraction was not just about physicality but about emotional resonance, about the meeting of two minds and hearts in quiet, unspoken acknowledgement. A warmth spread through her chest, a feeling she had longed for but never named, and she felt both grounded and exhilarated, the ordinary world fading away until only this moment remained, the two of them, side by side, exploring a new, uncharted connection that promised depth, tenderness, and a spark of romance neither had dared imagine in the humdrum of everyday life. As minutes stretched into hours, they became aware of a subtle shift, a soft energy in the room that made each glance linger, each word carry weight, each smile feel like an unspoken promise, and Emma realized that something extraordinary was happening, that life had unexpectedly given her more than just the fixing of a lamp, more than just casual neighborly interaction, but an opportunity to explore feelings that had been waiting patiently for recognition, and the realization made her chest ache with both longing and joy. Mark felt it too, the sudden awareness that the ordinary could transform into the extraordinary, that a quiet evening, a small act of help, and a moment of courage could change everything, and he found himself wanting to hold on to this moment, to protect it, to savor it, knowing it was fragile, delicate, and infinitely precious. They moved subtly closer, almost instinctively, aware of the energy pulsing between them, a gentle magnetism that neither wanted to resist, a quiet intimacy that made their surroundings fade, a soft thrill that hovered in the air, mixing with laughter, shared stories, and long, meaningful pauses. Emma realized that this attraction was more than simple infatuation. It was an awakening, a recognition of compatibility, of emotional depth, of understanding and care, of excitement tempered with warmth and tenderness, and in that realization, she felt herself leaning into the possibility, into the unknown, ready to see where this connection could lead, ready to explore the fragile, thrilling new bond forming before her very eyes. Mark's gaze softened, his voice quiet yet filled with emotion as he listened, responded, encouraged her to share more, and every exchange deepened the intimacy, creating a rhythm that was comfortable yet electrifying, familiar yet exhilarating, and Emma felt her heart swell with anticipation, hope, and a newfound sense of closeness she had not experienced before. They spoke until the soft glow of the repaired lamp became more than illumination, it became a symbol of this new beginning, the ordinary act of repair having catalyzed something extraordinary. A quiet shift that neither expected but both embraced wholeheartedly, and as Emma looked at Mark, she felt a profound sense of gratitude, joy, and anticipation for what might come next, knowing that the simple act of honesty had transformed their relationship, had opened the door to emotional connection, attraction, and a tender, unfolding romance. In the stillness that followed, with the lamp glowing gently between them and the city humming softly beyond the window, Emma and Mark shared a quiet, suspended moment, hearts aligned, thoughts intertwined, emotions raw and exhilarating, knowing that they were stepping into uncharted territory together, ready to explore the fragile, tender beginnings of something that had the potential to change their lives forever. In the days that followed, Emma and Mark's lives subtly shifted, their ordinary routines now colored by an unspoken awareness of each other, a quiet thrill that made every encounter feel significant, and every glance, every casual hello, now carried layers of meaning that had been absent before, and yet, despite the intensity of their feelings, they moved carefully, savoring each moment without rushing, learning to navigate the fragile beginnings of a connection that was exciting, emotional, and deeply personal, as if each shared smile, each gentle conversation, built an invisible bridge between their hearts. Mornings became brighter, their thoughts drifting naturally toward each other, anticipating the small interactions, the casual chats that now felt intimate, and every time Mark knocked on her door to check on something mundane or simply to stop by, Emma's heart raced with a mixture of excitement and longing, a sensation both thrilling and comforting, and it was in these ordinary moments that the extraordinary bond between them deepened, as though life itself had slowed to allow them to truly notice one another, to recognize the subtle beauty in shared presence and quiet attention. They began spending more time together, sometimes over coffee in her kitchen, sometimes strolling down the nearby streets as the late afternoon sun cast golden light over the city, the conversations flowing effortlessly between laughter, teasing, and deeper revelations about hopes, fears, and memories that had been tucked away for years. And in each exchange Emma discovered new layers to Mark, his patience, his gentle attentiveness, his surprising sense of humor, and his quiet wisdom, and she realized that the admiration she had felt for him was more than a passing feeling. It was rooted in genuine respect and emotional connection, the kind that made her feel both cherished and seen, understood without words, and the warmth of that realization filled her with a gentle, glowing happiness she hadn't expected to experience again. Mark, too, felt the pull of something transformative, a deepening awareness that their connection was no longer casual or fleeting but significant, fragile yet strong, a tender attraction that mixed excitement with vulnerability, making him more attuned to Emma's moods, more considerate of her thoughts, more eager to create moments that were meaningful, not for show but for the quiet intimacy they shared, and every smile, every touch of the hand, every lingering glance became a conversation of its own, a language they were learning together, speaking through unspoken gestures and subtle cues, a gentle romance that grew in strength and depth with each passing day. There were moments of hesitation, of doubt, fleeting thoughts that perhaps this was too fast, that perhaps the intensity of their emotions could overwhelm the careful balance of their friendship and neighborly familiarity. But those doubts were always tempered by the undeniable chemistry between them, the warmth that bloomed in shared laughter, the comfort of companionship, and the subtle thrill that accompanied every close conversation, every soft word, every brush of a hand as they reached for a coffee cup or adjusted a misplaced object, each contact sending sparks of awareness that were both exciting and reassuring, a delicate dance of restraint and surrender that neither wanted to end. One evening, as twilight settled over the city, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Emma and Mark found themselves walking side by side along a quiet street, the hum of distant traffic a gentle background to their easy conversation, and in that moment, she felt a deep sense of peace and exhilaration, realizing that this relationship, unexpected, tender, and emotionally rich, was opening her to feelings she had long ignored, emotions she had kept tucked away in the busyness of life, and that now, in Mark's presence, felt safe, welcome, and profoundly significant, as if she had been waiting for him without truly knowing it, for someone who could see her fully, who could accept her complexities, and who could share both the light and the shadow of everyday life with understanding and affection. Mark noticed the subtle joy in her eyes, the way her posture relaxed as she spoke, the soft laughter that brightened her face, and he felt a rush of protective tenderness, a desire to nurture this delicate bond, to ensure that their connection continued to grow naturally, without pressure or haste, and yet, despite his carefulness, there was a thrill in the unpredictability of it, a spark that kept him alert to every nuance of her expression, every slight change in tone, every silent cue that spoke volumes, and in doing so, he found himself drawn ever closer, emotionally and spiritually, to the woman he had long admired, now fully aware of the depth of his feelings, and ready to embrace the possibilities they held together. They shared small adventures, discovering favorite cafes, revisiting local parks, exchanging stories of childhood, of dreams deferred and fulfilled, of fears overcome and ambitions pursued, and with each shared experience, the bond grew, not rushed but layered, gentle yet compelling, a romance unfolding in the everyday, in the ordinary moments elevated by awareness, care, and emotional resonance, each act of attentiveness, each gesture of kindness, adding weight and depth to a relationship that had begun with a simple act of help but now promised far more, connection, intimacy, and the fragile, exhilarating hope of love. Nights were particularly charged with subtle energy, the quiet hum of the city outside contrasting with the vivid emotions they carried inside, as Emma found herself replaying moments of their conversations, the way Mark's voice lingered in her mind, the way his eyes had searched hers with honesty, the way his laughter had filled the quiet corners of her apartment, and she realized that she was learning to anticipate his presence, to treasure it, to feel alive in ways she hadn't for years, and that every smile, every gentle word, every lingering glance strengthened the emotional tapestry between them, creating a safe yet thrilling space where attraction, tenderness, and mutual respect intertwined. Mark, equally captivated, noticed her reactions, the way her expression softened when he spoke, the way she responded with warmth, the subtle cues that indicated trust, interest, and emotional availability, and he marveled at how natural it felt to be near her, to engage deeply, to experience the delicate dance of attraction and connection without haste, without force, just presence and mutual openness, which made every encounter meaningful, memorable, and emotionally charged in a gentle, wholesome way. Days melted into weeks, and with each passing moment, they discovered more about each other, the ordinary moments becoming extraordinary through shared attention, gentle teasing, heartfelt conversation, and quiet laughter that lingered long after the moment passed, and Emma realized that her feelings for Mark were not fleeting but enduring, rooted in admiration, attraction, emotional intimacy, and a deep-seated respect that made her want to be close to him, to share life, to build something lasting, tender, and mutually supportive, and in that realization, her heart swelled with hope, warmth, and a thrilling anticipation for the future. They navigated minor hesitations, brief insecurities, and small moments of doubt with honesty and care, communicating openly, learning the rhythm of each other's emotions, understanding the subtle language of gestures and expressions, and in doing so, they built trust and intimacy, a foundation strong enough to carry the delicate excitement of early romance while allowing space for emotional growth, reflection, and shared joy, proving that attraction could coexist with friendship, that romance could thrive without pressure, and that the heart could expand gently, embracing connection, vulnerability, and tenderness in equal measure. One evening, as they sat together on Emma's small balcony, the city lights twinkling like distant stars, sipping warm drinks, sharing stories, and laughing softly, Emma reflected on how a simple act, calling Mark for help with a broken lamp, had led to a cascade of unexpected emotions, discoveries, and shared experiences, a gentle reminder that life could surprise her, that ordinary moments held the power to spark extraordinary beginnings, and that love, tender and nuanced, could grow quietly yet powerfully when hearts were open, honesty prevailed, and two people truly saw each other for who they were, imperfections and all. Mark reached for her hand without thinking, and she allowed it, feeling the warmth of his touch, the subtle reassurance, the unspoken promise that they were in this together, navigating the newness, the excitement, and the tender uncertainty of budding romance, and in that moment, both understood that their connection had shifted from casual acquaintance to something profoundly emotional, deeply romantic, and beautifully intimate, a bond that would continue to grow, evolve, and flourish with care, attention, and mutual affection, proving that sometimes the simplest gestures could open doors to the most extraordinary, life-changing experiences. As the night settled over the city, the glow from distant streetlights reflecting softly on their faces, Emma and Mark leaned into the quiet comfort of each other's presence, hearts aligned, emotions intertwined, knowing that the story that had begun with a broken lamp had become a narrative of hope, tenderness, and the gentle thrill of love discovered unexpectedly, naturally, and beautifully, a story they would carry forward together, savoring every moment, every word, every glance, and every shared smile that made the ordinary seem magical, and life, for the first time in a long while, felt limitless, filled with possibility, and infinitely brighter because of each other's presence.